Good evening. My name is Mark Fernandez. So this is the 30th of April, so it's my last teaching for the month, and it's been 5 weeks and very enjoyable so far. So let's see how we go for this week, our fifth. I see some of us have got blankets, which is very good. I was thinking about it myself, so it's fairly cold at night, isn't it, in Melbourne? It's really changed very quickly. So anyway, let's establish a good motivation for the next hour. So as we've covered in previous weeks, this directs any energy, positive energy or virtue that we create for a noble purpose. So the noble purpose which the prayer directs you to is for you to achieve the state of full enlightenment. And why do you want to achieve that? It's for the sake of all sentient beings. So according to Buddhism, that's our potential as human beings, that we have that potential within us to achieve that state of full enlightenment. So even if it seems like a pipe dream now, like it's impossible, no way, no chance, in Buddhism there's, oh no, you have that potential that's still there, even if it's covered over, obscured, whatever, that potential still exists. So any establishing good motivation is worthwhile. So any effort you direct towards that state of full enlightenment, it's not wasted. So it gets you closer. So the state of enlightenment is said to be characterised by complete happiness for oneself and love and compassion for all sentient beings, without exception. So the without exception's thrown in as a, well, I've got love and compassion for all you, but this one over here I can't stand. So it's not like that. So it has to be if you like, a universal feeling, a warmth actually, a universal warmth where it's encompassing every being. The beings that you're close to, the beings you're not so close to, the beings who you have sort of run-ins with, even they're included in that compassion and love. So in addition to that, so you have this happiness for yourself, you have this love and compassion for all sentient beings, but you also have great wisdom. So that's not covered very often, but that's characterised by, as your mind opens and develops, your own wisdom arises. And one of the functions of that wisdom is what should I do? What's the best course of action? Sometimes we don't know. We're a bit confused. Oh, should I do this? Should I do that? Not sure. When that wisdom rises, it spontaneously directs that's the best course of action. So that's quite good, huh? Because at the moment we could say, well, don't have that much compassion, don't have that much love. My motivation's not strong, and my wisdom's a bit obscured, unclear. I don't really know what to do next. But when you achieve or move towards enlightenment, all those qualities are lifted. So I'll read the prayer 3 times. So we'll go for this. So I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. From the virtuous merit that I collect by practicing giving and other perfections, may I attain the state of a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. From the virtuous merit that I collect by practicing giving and other perfections, may I attain the state of a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. From the virtuous merit that I collect by practicing giving and other perfections, may I attain the state of a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. So that's the attitude we set at the beginning, and then we'll go through for an hour, or just about an hour, and then that clock's very slow. So anyway, it's 55 minutes, we'll say. So that we're directing any good feeling, any positive energy towards this end, the end we've just read out. So the state of full enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. So the happiness that you achieve when you're fully enlightened is said to be permanent. And it's said to be a byproduct of your attitude and work that you have done beforehand on behalf of others. So in that respect, although you're striving for enlightenment, this state of full enlightenment, you're not doing it for your own benefit, you're doing it for others, without exception, but the byproduct is you achieve happiness. And those people who work in the caring professions particularly, although it doesn't necessarily apply only to them, would probably know this. You know, when you start applying that love and compassion to others, you know, that care, you forget about your own problems and that, and you're focused on their happiness. But as a result, there's this good feeling that you feel. So I'm sure everyone's experienced that, whether you're in the caring profession or not. When you focus on other people's happiness and removing them from suffering, that it impacts you positively. So that's, if you like, taking it back, that's what we're trying to do on a grand scale. Does that make sense? Does anyone disagree or say, no, it's the opposite's true? No? A very genial and agreeable crowd, I must say. Anyway, that's good. So you've obviously thought about this a lot. So these are classical Buddhist, if you like, not ideology, but just philosophy and psychology. So in the past weeks we've covered the purpose of meditation is to bring peace and happiness to the mind. And I'll just bring up one of Geshe Doga's great sayings, that a peaceful mind is a happy mind. So if your mind's peaceful, it's happy. It's not downtrodden, upset, agitated, beset by afflictions. It's happy. It's natural levels here, up here somewhere. So it's very good. So anyway, how do we achieve this peaceful mind? Well, Geshe Doga's he talks about the method of developing a meditation practice. So we'll come to that a little bit later, but that's an important feature of Buddhist philosophy and psychology, is we use a particular meditation practice to settle the mind down, bring it some focus. Then once we have that focus, we can use it to examine how we're feeling, whether we're feeling good or not, and what can we do about it, etc. So one of the features of the meditation practice is that it temporarily causes the afflicted minds to subside. So does that ring true? Because a lot of you have been here for a few weeks. Does that ring true, that when you calm the mind down through, breathing meditation, the afflicted minds that you may have had before will naturally subside? Is that true? No? Yes, I'm getting... Okay. Well, okay, so... And that's because your attention, if you like, is diverted away from the object of the affliction. Whether it's someone who's made you angry, or what do we have, resentment? You know, causing resentment. When you're focusing on the breath for that 1 minute, 2 minutes, your attention's drawn away from the object and the afflicted mind, and because the breath's a virtuous object, it naturally settles the mind down. You're not agitated anymore for that particular time, and a natural calmness arises. So that's one of the, if you like, the byproducts of that you're actually diverting your mind away from the objects that bring you problems. So you need that little bit of respite, because even if you say, oh, well, it's only temporary, and once I get back into the real world and I jump out of off my meditation cushion, that person's there, or that affliction's still there. But over time, the meditation practice actually gives you a little bit of time and space to see that object or that person that's causing that affliction, and not be so enamoured and engaged with it, or that with him or her. So that's one of the, if you like, beauties of that practice that you do, that it develops that within you. So it doesn't happen overnight. You know, I've done meditation for a few weeks, and it's all fabulous now. And you know, people can come and go, and it happens over time. But it does work. So that's and you have to try it for yourself too. I can't tell you it works. So you have to try it yourself. Okay, good. Okay. We covered the law of cause and effect, or karma, in briefly. So the law of cause and effect, a positive action leads to a positive result, a negative action will lead to a negative result. Can it work the other way? Positive action will lead to a negative result? No? Could, yeah. We see that all the time, don't we? Well-intentioned, I'm going to do something good, and it turns out to be a disaster. But is that the classic cause and effect that we're talking about? No. So, because generally what happens in this life is that we're experiencing the results of past karma, in past lives mainly. So, if we give, I use the example, I gave $10 to a poor person, and next week I received $100 as a gift. Are they related? And from a cause and effect point of view, we'd say, well, giving the $10 is creating the positive action or imprint, very good. And then receiving the $100 is the ripening of another karmic action created in the distant past, previous life, whatever. So not exactly the same cause and effect. So that's something when you study cause and effect, because we're not fully enlightened, very difficult to go into the specifics, but you can get an idea of the concept of it. Okay, so with cause and effect, we also have the idea of cyclic existence and also beginningless time. So was there ever a moment where Mark was created for the first time? Ed, you're shaking your head, I hope? You're shaking your head. Yes, I've always existed in some form or another. The continuum of Mark, whatever I was, has kicked on and is now here. So, unfortunately, it's not like the escalator, which I described last week, that it'll always be in this upward direction. You know, my next lifetime will be a king or, a monarch, whatever, general, lord of the world, all that, lord of the universe, all that. It won't necessarily work like that. It could go, oh, well, human lifetime for Mark, and then because of the ripening of negative karma at the point of death, not so good. And unfortunately with the lower realms, once you're born there, because they're characterised by a lot of suffering, it's very difficult to get back up. So they say this realm, this human rebirth we have, these conditions we have, are very rare indeed. So that's another topic worth studying, actually, if you're interested, because it gives you a good idea then of how karma can ripen into the conditions we have and also the conditions that other beings have. So we can see the animal realm, for example, part of a food chain, not such a good life for most animals, huh? The pets, no problem, we can look after them and take care of them, but a lot of the other animals we eat, or they're eaten by other animals, or they're in some sort of slavery. Was it labour? They use forced labour, isn't it, really, for farm animals and all that in lots of countries, as well as being eaten. So it's not such a good life for the animals. But we can see that happening. And so from the law of cause and effect, we'd say, well, Mark could have been a cow, previous lifetime. So in Buddhism they say, yeah, totally realistic that could have been the case. The karma finished and somehow Mark had the good karma to be reborn as a human being in a good place, etc. So that's worth studying. So when we create a positive action or a negative action, the imprint of that action is stored on our mental continuum. So it's there, ready to ripen when the causes and conditions are there. So if they're good, if they're virtuous, then it's no problem, is it? Because the result will always be positive or virtuous. If they're not such good actions, say steal or kill or lie or whatever, the actions created, the imprints placed on my mind stream, if they're not mitigated or stopped or eliminated in some way, when the causes and conditions ripen, then it will result in suffering for me in some way. So we've been through jealousy for a few weeks, and a few of you have said, look, no, jealousy doesn't work. You know, it's not in terms of being an afflicted mind, it doesn't do anything, you don't experience anything when you do that meditation. So that's a fair point. You know, not everyone has the same manifest afflictions. However, we can see that the mind of jealousy can lead to the mind of resentment. He has what I want. I don't like it. Every time I see him, I can't stand it. There's a resentment building there. But it can also come from the mind of anger or hatred too. Huh? So that's another way that resentment can arise. So it can be. So when I looked at it, I could see that resentment, the mind of resentment, could be on the continuum of very mild, like an irritation. You know, just that person's very irritating. I don't really like being too very strong. So a hatred or a strong anger towards the person. So there's sort of a continuum there with resentment. So I'll give you an example from my own experience. So in our shop, in our jewellery shop, we've got a star-shaped porcelain bowl on the front counter filled with chocolates. So it's for customers anyone who comes into the shop, welcome, take, if they want one, they can take one. Fine, so no problem. So a customer came in, said, oh, I'm looking for some jewellery. I don't know what I'm looking for. Oh, can I have a chocolate? So I said, yeah, no problem, take one. Fine, good. So from a karmic point of view, was that virtuous? Yes, everyone would agree. So, there's an act of some form of generosity there. Persons actually asked very nicely, and they said, go. Okay, then what happened was a polite request, oh, could I have another one? So, again, not, I'll grab it, just, may I have another chocolate? So I said, oh, yes, of course. Have one, okay. So was that virtuous? Yes, but what about my mind at that time? Was that virtuous? It should have been. Unfortunately, there was a fault. So what happened there was my mind was irritated. I never met the man, so I'd got there's no past need, cause for irritation, but why was I irritated? So why did that resentment come? So it comes about because I haven't developed equanimity towards all others. So if it had been someone else, maybe that I knew, maybe a woman, I don't know, maybe a second request would have been met with, oh, of course, and it would have been all good. But this time there was something about that man, it was like, yeah, sure, have, of course. But inside I was like, I don't like this, so it's not good. So for me, the fault wasn't the person politely requesting, the fault comes back to me, isn't it? Yeah? So has anyone ever experienced that? That's sort of no sort of tangible reason why, but there's something about the experience. Well, I don't like that. So there's irritation, resentment. So anyway, working it right back out. Okay, I didn't have the mind of equanimity.
So you spent $500 between the first request.
Yeah, of course. Yes, that's right. The circumstances might have changed because great customer, he's buying lots of jewellery, good. But no, anyway, look, just looking back, I'd say that man was genuinely hungry. Came into the shop and saw, oh, there's chocolates, and thought, oh, good, I'll have one. Then he's still hungry, have another. So it was genuine, like he had a genuine need for it. It wasn't like, oh, well, just to irritate me, I'll ask Mark for a second chocolate. So it was just, so from his side, no problem, because, you know, he just wanted his needs met for food, for something nice. So good. So, but from my side, at that point, the mind of equanimity was gone. I was partial away from him, and so I couldn't say I was compassionate towards anyone else at that point, because that was gone. It was just irritation or resentment towards that man. So that mind of equanimity was missing in action. So supposedly it's meant to be there all the time, huh? Yes? No, probably not. For most of us, we've got this, the people I know and love and are close to, compassion and love for them. The people who I don't like or irritate me, cause problems for me, no, not much compassion or equanimity for them. And the ones who I don't know at all, I don't care about. So it's just like a complete sort of, well, they're strangers. So I don't have any regard for them one way or the other. Just so having those feelings for different people, depending on where you strike them and when, that causes a lot of problems for us. So it caused some problems for me because I didn't have that. I couldn't deal with that situation with equanimity. So there is one technique that we use to develop equanimity, and I'll explain a few. It's called coincidentally, the friend, enemy and stranger meditation. So has anyone ever heard of that one? Yes. So if you've studied Buddhism, you'll see that it's a good method for developing the mind of equanimity. So you may ask, well, why do you need the mind of equanimity? Well, if you go back to my example, because I didn't have that equanimity at that time, my mind was disturbed, upset, wasn't peaceful, even though seemingly there was a virtuous action being done. Have a chocolate in a bit. So to address that, the mind of equanimity is the essential feature. So if you have that, you can develop love, compassion, the mind of enlightenment, all those good qualities. If you don't have equanimity, it becomes a little bit, well, I've got love and compassion for all my friends, and I don't like those other people, so not for them, and the strangers I don't care about at all. So you're not trying to achieve enlightenment for all sentient beings. It's only for your friends. So it doesn't quite work. So, did you have a question? Sorry.
I was just wondering, at the point of you realising that you were irritated that he was asking for a second chocolate, is that an opportunity? Am I, in those situations, supposed to say, well, why am I irritated? Am I judging him? Is it because I never do that? Like, do I go to that level, or do I just accept that I'm irritated, so I need to meditate or do something, or do I actually look and go deep and say, well, what's got, why am I so?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a good question about analysis of the situation, because you can do analysis till you're paralysed. Was analysis paralysis or whatever it is, and you can keep going to the nth degree down. And so you've got to just, like for me, it was just sort of almost like I was looking at the bowl of chocolates. The person had gone, and I was thinking, well, there was supposedly some virtue being, in that, but it didn't feel like it because I wasn't happy. So I was thinking, well, so I didn't go, I didn't go all the way in terms of, oh, well, what was our karmic connection? Did he not give me a chocolate in a previous life? I didn't go that far, but I could have. It could have been something like that, but I didn't go that far. But you could go. But I just thought, that was enough. The fact that I was disturbed mentally was enough for me to go, there's something quite wrong here, and it's not from the person who asked for the chocolate. Because you can keep going. And I've got someone who, a friend, he goes, oh, what's my malady? Is it malady? Yeah. So he's got a book. So if he's feeling a bit lousy, he'll go to the book. And what does the book do? it reinforces his feelings and says, oh, I think I've got that condition. So you become a little bit obsessed with what's the book saying. So you keep going and diving. So I digress. So you have to use your own wisdom, and that's where they say, listening, contemplation. Do your own contemplation, because you've got to work out what works well for you. So let's do we'll do some. So anyway, who's here for the first time? Anyone here for the first time? All right, we'll do some breathing meditation. Okay, I see there's a few. So we'll do a bit of breathing meditation, and then we'll go straight into this friend, enemy, stranger meditation. So most important thing, whether you're in a seat or cushion, is back straight. And then your hands are in your lap. So in our tradition, the left hand's on the bottom and the right hand's on top, and your thumbs are touching, and you're pointing them back towards they're sitting in your lap, so just a relaxed thing, and you're pointing them back towards the navel. And your mouth's sort of just shut, gently shut. Your tongue's on top of your palate. Your eyes are not completely closed. They're not wide open. They're just sort of letting in the impression of light. And the focus is you're going to be breathing in through your nostrils. So as we start, we'll do that. So we'll breathe in enlightened energy. Whatever the form that takes, you breathe that in. So it's calming you down, relaxing you, making you feel good. And then breathing out all your worries and concerns, all the things that agitate you, just breathing them out. So do that for a few breaths. And then we'll switch our attention to the sensation of the breath as it's going in and out through the nostrils. And we'll do it for about a minute. So for that minute, you're going to, if you like, really try and apply your mind to just be focused on the sensation of the breath as it's going in and out through the nostrils. Just on that. Not worried about tomorrow or who I'm meeting for lunch, but just on the breath as it goes in and out. And if your mind wavers, just bring it gently back to the breath. So we'll do this for a minute. So while you're focusing on the breathing, you can just visualize or picture in front of yourself your best friend. And then to your right, you can visualize your enemy, someone you dislike or they dislike you, someone who irritates you. And then to your left, visualize a stranger, someone you don't know at all, you don't know by name. They don't mean anything to you one way or the other. So just that you allow the feelings to develop for those three people, whether it's the feeling of strong attraction or like for the friend, and hostility or ill will for the enemy, and then for the strangers, sort of that complete lack of care or any feeling towards them at all. So now that we've established the three, the friend, the enemy and the stranger, we'll swap them around. So the friend has a fight with you, or you have a fight with them, and they now become the enemy. The person who was the enemy completely leaves your life or your environment, and they become the stranger. And the stranger who you didn't know before suddenly becomes your friend. So again, just notice the feelings that you have now towards those three, because they've swapped roles, and allow those feelings to come up. So finally we swap them again. So your original friend now is completely out of your life. They become a stranger. Lo and behold, your original enemy now becomes a friend. And the original stranger becomes your enemy. So again, allow those feelings to come up. So we can gently bring your attention back to the room, and you can open your eyes. So was that meditation completely fanciful, true to life, or somewhere in the middle? Anyone? Has anyone ever had a best friend who suddenly became your worst enemy? And then completely left you and they're gone? No? Yes, I've had it happen to me. So I was like, so I was a best friend with a mate at school. We were probably from about 12 till about 15. So really quite close. We used to live close together and go do everything together. We play sport together, go out. And I thought, this is good. Good childhood friendship is going to develop into adulthood. And then one day we had this big fight, and that sort of was the beginning of the end. So it was sort of like after that, wasn't so good to be with each other, be around each other, and then gone. And I've never seen him again. Actually, I did see him again when he was 21. He was getting married. So he came around to see me. So it was sort of, oh, okay, that's really good, well done. But then after that, nothing. So 35 years later. So, you know, so there was one where friend, enemy, and then stranger. So for me, I think that's what happens throughout our lives. You know, that we hold on, that she's, you know, he or she are always going to be there for me. They'll always be near and dear, and then it doesn't always work out like that. And so the view we have is that they're permanent. The permanent friend, the permanent enemy, and the permanent stranger. And that's what causes the problem, because in reality, it's not like that. So if you develop this mind of equanimity, you're not so concerned with the label of the person you encounter. So you're able to treat them in what way? What's that? Sorry? The same. Are you treating them with cold-hearted disdain? But you're still treating them the same? Equal, but cold-hearted disdain equally? Detached? Kindness, yes. You have to speak up, sorry. With compassion, yes, all good. So what we're trying to develop is not the equanimity that treats everyone with disdain equally. Because I actually have seen some people who seem to do that. They go, oh yeah, I'm so powerful and everything, and I treat everyone the same. You know, trample. So that's not what we're trying to develop. So it's really like a equal level of compassion, love, warmth, affection for everyone we encounter. That's the equanimity we're seeking to achieve. So one of the techniques we can use to do that is, on the basis of what His Holiness says, is all beings want happiness and don't want suffering. So when you view someone through that prism, what rises? You mentioned it. What mind rises? Compassion. That's right. So when you view someone through all beings want happiness and don't want suffering, the compassion rises. Oh, I can't stand that person's suffering. You know that, and love rises. I wish happiness for them. So a friend of mine does that. Every person he meets, he's thinking, may that person have happiness and not have suffering. So that's his first thought is that. So there's no room then for him to have a partial mind or a disturbed mind at that point, because he's focused on the other person having happiness and having no suffering. So and he's trained his mind for that. It's not like spontaneously he's able to he trained his mind to do that. But the result is, though, when you see Bob, very agreeable, very accommodating, very compassionate, very loving, all those qualities come out as a result of him training his mind. So his first thought on encountering somebody he doesn't know is, or even somebody he does know, is have happiness, avoid, I hope you avoid suffering, that. So he's... So there's two techniques. So there's that friend, enemy, stranger meditation you can do. And if you're not convinced, trawl back. Because if you think, oh, well, no, the friends I've got now are the ones I had when I was a baby and it's all good, and the enemies I've had when I was a young child are the same ones who rub me the wrong way now. When you examine in our lives, you probably see there's so much change. It doesn't really... I can't say that's my experience. So anyway, you have to check yourself. But that's one very good way of, if you like, getting rid of that label of permanence around who is who and what are they to you. And by sort of, if you like, undermining that, that level of equanimity can rise. And the second method is this seeing that all beings want happiness and don't want suffering. And that's valid. So His Holiness says that's a valid mind to have. All beings want happiness and don't want suffering. It's a valid mind to have. It's not a pie in the sky idea. It's something that everyone deserves. We deserve it. Everyone else deserves it. It's not, oh no, it's too highfalutin. It's actually, His Holiness says, no, that's the right of every human being, or every being is that, to have happiness and not suffering. So there's another method if you want to develop equanimity, and this one you need a good understanding of the law of cause and effect, or karma. So this one is viewing all beings as one's mother. All beings as one's mother. So if you only have a view that, oh, well, there's just one life, this one, and then after you die, that's the end, then you don't have to worry about this method, because it's not applicable. And if you don't think about that there are previous lives, then this method doesn't apply either, does it? Because you've only had one mother. But if you only have that belief in one mother, you can, for the most part, apply the same method. So I'll just read this one out. You could do this as a meditation, but it's really recognising all beings as one's mother, and you can replace that with recognising your mother. So if you just want to look at it, your mother of this life, recognising the kindness of mother sentient beings, wishing to repay their kindness, developing affectionate love for that, your mother, generating great compassion for your mother, and then the next part's called the extraordinary intention. So it's saying, I alone will lead my mother or mother sentient beings out of suffering to happiness. So what would be extraordinary about that intention?
It's almost a mothering intention.
Yes, that's true, but there's something extraordinary about that. It's who's going to do that? You, yes. So that's the extraordinary bit, that you're not saying, oh, wouldn't it be great if mum had this and that, and she was happy completely, and the Buddha's going to take care of business and do it for me. It's actually, I'm going to do it. Or in your case, you're going to do it. So that's the extraordinary intention, where within yourself you develop that yearning to go, well, my mother is not so happy, she's suffering, I'm going to do the work. So you have to have that, and then out of that you develop this, the mind of enlightenment. Who'd like to have a go at what the mind of enlightenment is? So we read it in the prayer, so if you were reading along, you might have picked it up, but otherwise I'll read it again. So I'll read at the bottom, last line. So it's, may I attain the state of a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. So that's the mind of, at that point, that's the mind of enlightenment, that may I attain the state of a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. So it's not, may I attain the state of a Buddha and then I'm out of here and forget every other sentient, every being. It's, may I attain the state of a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. And as that gentleman said, he's the intention, that superior intention that he creates, is the impetus for that mind of enlightenment to develop. So it's take personal responsibility, and out of that comes, well, how can I free my mothers? How can I bring them happiness? I must achieve enlightenment. So it sort of follows. So that's one method to do. So there's three. So all those three will give you a level of equanimity. So this third method, seeing all beings as your mother, once you start seeing all beings as your mother, can you see one mother as better than the other? No? Yeah, it becomes pretty difficult. If you have that taste, or, well, she was my mother, and so was she, and he was as well. You begin to sort of see, well, there's that equality there, equality of being, and their care for you in past lives. And even if you say, forget that, I'll just go to the mother of this life, you can use that mind to still generate the compassion, the equanimity for others as well. Particularly, I suppose, the mother, and some people who has had if you like, a mixed experience with their mothers. A bit of a laugh. Well, sure. I better deal with that, huh? Because no. Well, look, it's not always easy with your mum. So my mum's passed away a few years ago. So, but you know, it was when I was a teenager again. Particularly, I go back to my teenage years. There was a time where mum had the wooden spoon and was chasing me down the road, and it was like, and I got, because I was a teenager, I just got quick enough one day to keep running and outrun her before the wooden, but she did it with good intention. So it was, from that point of view, it was never like you hear people saying, oh, my mum was this and that, and my mum was never like, she was very kind and compassionate, looked after me. And so for those of you who've had mixed experience with your mother, there's still the thing of, for that period when you're born till 2 or 3, 4, I don't know, you can't survive. If mum leaves you, and dad leaves you too, we'll say dad's gone too, and you're left out in the wilderness or wherever, you're dead, huh? Unless someone takes you in, you won't survive. Your mother does everything to nurture you and care for you and bring you up to adulthood, or to through your childhood, etc. So the mother's very kind from that point of view. So even those people who've had, oh no, my experience with my mum wasn't good, there's that. You go, look, just focus on that piece. You go, well, if mum didn't do that, if she'd abandoned me completely, then I wouldn't be here. So it's quite powerful. Even if you go, forget the past lives, you just look at the mum of this life. And quite moving. So you go, Yep. Yep. Yeah. Well, it's a good question. Yep. Well, the army of ants, we can definitely say that's a Victorian experience. We've probably all had, in the summer when it's dry outside, where do the ants go? They go to wherever water is or sugar. The cane toads, we haven't quite reached our borders yet. But anyway, look, I hear what you're saying. So it's just like, there's still the acknowledgement that they're a sentient being as well. So, and so for the most part, this is try my best. Take them outside, sweep them into a little dustpan, not the cane toad, the little ants. So you go take them out, and then the only ones that I find I have trouble with, I shouldn't say the only one, mosquitoes. So I just go, what is it, the blissful slumber, that, and you hear this, it's like a little. It's like a little plane, isn't it? Sort of like a whining sound, isn't it? So it's like, and you know what it's aiming for. So you're thinking, oh. Anyway, so even those, I try and go, turn on the light, like this, get the jar, catch it, take it out, push it out, So it's like, I try, but not always does it work. But there's trying to develop some sort of compassion even for a mosquito. The intention is to try not to harm them. So even, again, the Buddhist view is that, you might not be able to benefit everyone, but at least you can try not to harm them. It's the baseline, or as much as you can. So it's not like saying, mission impossible. So then, okay, what can I do now? Okay, I can maybe take those ants out, So that's it. But because again, if you go back in time, one time that ant or those ants were my mother, or you bring it, you start flinging back, and if you start thinking about it, you go, well, could I then just go bang, and it becomes a bit more problematic for you to go. You go, oh, hold on, that's not. So you start thinking about those things, and they do you no harm to think about them. There's no ill effect of that. You go. In fact, you start. Okay, the ants, and also like some people. What do they do? Possums. They're not here at the moment, but you can see some people set up the houses in the trees that are on their land, because the possums are, what are they? They're nocturnal, but they're also territorial, huh? So if you take them and put them 50 kilometres away, they don't survive. But if you take them out of the roof or whatever and put them in a tree on your property, they'll sort of, supposedly, I don't know, just happily stay there. So there are things, with compassion you can do certain things to alleviate. But that's the thing, you try and develop the compassion for all sentient beings, even ants or cane toads. So that's a good question. It's a very good question. So once they say, so again, coming back to my friend with the chocolates, who was after the second chocolate. So if I was able to, beforehand, have developed that mind of equanimity, then whatever he'd asked for, if it was skillful to do, I would have gone, yeah, of course, another chocolate, of course, take, without rancour, without resentment, because that mind of equanimity would have been there. And faster?
No, how far?
How far?
Go, because my mother takes so much for people. But can I say a pushover or a doormat?
Oh, yes.
You always used to take advantage.
Oh, yes, yeah. So this gets back to, you have to act with wisdom as well. So just the compassion, equanimity, there's the basis. You have to have that. You have to have a little bit of space, so meditation helps you with that. And then you also have to have that wisdom that develops. You have to develop the wisdom as well to know, what's the right thing to do? So I mentioned that at the beginning, that's Buddhahood, you do that mind of, this is the right thing to do. But as we're here and the Buddhahood's perhaps there, we go, all right, well, as my mind's becoming clearer, the wisdom's developing it too. So it's not totally like, so in terms of being a doormat, if being a doormat's counterproductive, like it doesn't do you any good and doesn't do the person any good, then you just go, with equanimity, thanks very much, but no thanks, or whatever, and then move on. So you have to have that. That's a good question too, yeah. Oh, okay. All right. So it's nothing to do with marketing or anything like that, nothing to do with that. So, and this is, what have we got? So see those flowers there on the altar there, and some here on Geshe Doga's altar? So they're offerings by people to the teacher and to the Buddhas. So is that a positive action, virtuous action, or a negative action, or a neutral one? Is it? Would you say it's on the continuum of being positive?
I'm just wondering if the person's spent $1,000.
Yes.
Listen, you can have a box of chocolate.
Oh, yeah. No. The point for me was I didn't have that mind, but from why I was coming back to why the box of chocolate. So what I try and do is each day I offer 2 chocolates at home to the Buddhas or to the teacher, at home. So this is not to Geshe Doga here, but it's just, okay. So then, and at the end of each day, I put it aside. So after a few days, it's starting to pile up. So I go, all right, what do I do? Sometimes I bring them to Tara Institute and just put them in the bowl there. So on a Monday night, whatever, someone will eat them. So I go, all right, well, they've been offered, so great, someone else can have them, that's good. sometimes I take them to the shop and fill the bowl up. So it's like, oh well, someone's should eat them. Yes, good if a customer comes in, wants to have them or take whatever. So that's why I do it. If it was completely virtuous, that second chocolate wouldn't have mattered at all. Whether the person had spent $500 or no money or $5, it wouldn't have disturbed me. It should have been another opportunity to go, oh yes, have one and be completely magnanimous and loving and compassionate and that mindful of equanimity at that point. Unfortunately, because my mind was disturbed, it didn't work out. And I thought it was a good example because it started off good. The first chocolate was all, no problem. But the second one was just harder. And I thought, well, it shouldn't. And why it was a good example was it just shows how even when we start off with good intention, well-meaning, that if the affliction rises, it can turn just like that. So even the things we thought, I intended to do good, but it didn't turn out that way because something disturbed me. So we're trying to, if you like, we're not trying to make the person who asked for the second chocolate not ask. We're trying to transform or change the afflicted mind that's disturbed by giving the second chocolate, and that's a better way to be. And that's with all the things we're trying to do. We're trying to work on ourselves as opposed to the other person. Because we can't control the other person, can we? Their response to things. But we can certainly develop control within ourselves. So that's probably the big learning from that. And as equanimity comes, and then love and compassion, then you go, all right, if that situation comes again, maybe I'll react better. So, anyway, so you can see some of these flower offerings are fabulous. So they're not one chocolate or two, they're actually, people have been very magnanimous and generous with that, so that's quite good, I think. So, do you have a question? Sorry?
Yeah. Just related to the mosquito story.
Yes.
People who like humans as well. Once the mosquito bites you, how do you approach the mosquito?
Well, usually, I'll tell you, usually I take the coward's way out, which is pull the covers over and just hide until morning. So I'm not prepared to, oh gosh, get out and turn the light on. So, but then most times I try and get the jar, get the lid, and take it out. So I try that. After they've bitten me, it's probably like too late because they've bitten. They've bitten me. So it's like I can't take it out. And it's still going to, what is it, itch? It's itch, more of the itch, isn't it? They leave that antigen in that doesn't allow the blood to clot properly, and so that's what causes the itch. So that's still there, even though the mosquito is full and it's long gone, or it's telling its buddies, there's someone here who's got really nice tasting, all that blood and all that. So there's that, but you're still trying to have that compassion for the mosquito. Because it's a sentient being. It's got a... so who knows what a sentient being is? Yes? Yes. Yes, a being that has feelings and emotions. And so we'd say it's a multicellular being with a continuum. So it's got from our realm, some sort of animal, multi-celled animal that's got a continuum. So plant, no. What's the is it amoeba? Amoeba, is that multi-celled animal? Is it singular? One cell. So it's got to be bigger than an amoeba then, but animal from where we exist. That's sort of then you get that's got a continuum in it, feelings. So you say multi-level organism with feelings, consciousness, emotion, that is classified as a sentient being for us because of the law of karma. When it passes away, it could be reborn as a human being. So there's that connection between, oh well, the mosquito that's irritating me and bitten me, and then you go, well, tomorrow it could be reborn as a human being and do the same, irritate me and, you know, cause me lack of sleep, all that. So you go, you know, there's sort of, so you be, you know, they say that you have to try and apply it to everything. So a good example they say is the pets we have. So most people have got pets, I think, or had a pet. So the pet looks at us with adoring eyes and love, like that, you know, whatever the pet, you know. So is that they, you know. So if we reciprocate back that, they'll keep going. You know, that's it. That's the relationship they have with you. So it's completely adoring and loving from their side. And if you show them kindness, then it's, you know, you see the loyalty, everything develops from that. So they don't have intelligence that a human being has. So they have intelligence, but not quite what a human being has. So they can't think about enlightenment, compassion for all sentient beings. So there's a limit. So the mosquito's in the same, or even one step back from the pet. You know, that they're small, they're, you know, part of the food chain. Maybe the pet's not. So, but with the law of karma and rebirth, if you have compassion for them, or and connection, they've bitten me, maybe they get reborn in a good life sometime. You know. So, yeah. You have a question too?
It just confuses me a little bit, like when you think about compassion and loving kindness towards all sentient beings,
Mm-hmm.
and the extent of putting a mosquito in a jar to take it outside, and eating animals. It just, I don't know, I mean, I've met some Buddhist monks who, I just assume they're all vegans, but they're not. They eat animals as well, and I just want to understand that kind of view towards sentient beings, but still contributing to the violence around
Yes.
animal agriculture.
Yeah, it's not an easy question to answer, because if you go to our friend's question here about the insect or the mosquito, that's a sentient being, all the way up to the cow, to the human. So you say, well, they're all the same in that they're all sentient beings. So,
Why would we say mosquito
yes.
and eat a steak?
Well, I think eating the steak or drinking the milk. So all those things are cultural, societal. You know, like over that. You know, that's become our diet over whatever the millennia. So you go, and whether you're Buddhist or non-Buddhist, whatever, you just go, that's what we're used to. That's what we brought up with. So, and look, it's good that people question, oh, can I live without it, or is there a more ethical way to live and more less harmful way to eat, etc. But in Buddhism, and this is another, it's not a law of Buddhism, but it's Buddhism, there's no dictate one way or the other whether you should eat meat or drink milk or be vegan or be vegetarian or whatever. There's no, the Buddha never definitively said this and that. Yeah. Yeah. But even, again, just going back to the insect, when you, was it thresh wheat? I think that's the term. You know, the wheat's in the field and you go chop, chop, chop. How many millions of insects are killed when that happens? Just doing that action alone of going just that. So it's happening because we're in this existence. That's what happens to feed us. So all those kind beings are being killed for that purpose, so that we can get a loaf of bread, for example. So yeah, it's not an easy question, but anyway, the Buddha didn't come come down one way or the other. He left it up to us to decide what works. So I think that's the best, really, because I certainly don't want to get on the soapbox and say you should do this or that. That's up to each person to work out. You had a question?
Oh yeah, I was going to say sort of what that also comes to like, well, I really agree with even animal products. But like, when you have a relationship with an animal, like if you had a piglet or a pig and it grew up, you wouldn't want to eat that.
Yes.
But yet with a stranger, with a random thing that you're not like killing yourself or anything, like another someone else is. So you don't really have a relationship with it, and you see it just as food and sentient being. It's like easier for people to eat it, and it's in people's culture, so it's been going on for so long. But I hope that can change too, because yeah, it's just like it's not something that's really thought about, and there's some people who can be really aggressive when they're passionate about it, and then it just comes across the wrong way. But like, yeah, it's like a really controversial as well.
Yeah. So it's a very good point you raise. So it's cultural, and when you start thinking about the animal that you're eating, you go, well, would I have eaten it if it was a pet? And probably not. So you go, there's all that, but like just from where I'm coming from, I have one daughter who's omnivore, one daughter who's vegetarian, and one son who's vegan. So guess which one's the most militant? The vegan, yes. So yes. So unfortunately, because you go, well, if it was, and I hear your point. If they're a little bit more, live and let live, and I'll show you by example, it would be easier to take. But sometimes, instead of me being on the soapbox, sometimes my son wants to jump on the soapbox, and I go, oh gosh, So it doesn't. So to me, it's like, all right, okay, I hear you, but I'm maybe agreeing to not go along your way at this stage. And I find that's the best way to deal with it. And obviously try and live without harming sentient beings as much as possible. So just before, it's already past 9, so I don't want to keep you too long, but one thing is, having the mind of equanimity, can anyone see how having that mind would help you deal with the mind of resentment or anger or hatred more readily? Yes? No?
Do you ever draw the line with how many chocolates you give a person?
No, generally not, because again, that's that. I'm prepared to give you 1, but not 2. And if you try 3, then it's So it's not like that, because there's that whole thing of the mind, if you like, the mind of giving. Because I think they say here in this prayer, by practicing giving and the other perfections. So these are the perfections of those practices you do to generate this mind of enlightenment. So one of them is giving. So you want it to be like within whatever's skillful and whatever I can do, here you go. So there might be a limit, because you might go, well, if I give you everything, I can't feed my family. This whole, I'm not. So no one's saying, well, take the clothes off my back and take my wallet. Take it. It's not like that. You just go, whatever I can do at the time. And for me, it's like, I've got these chocolates that have been offered. Here you go. I don't tell the people that. I just go, here, take them. Take some if you want. So that when we talked about karma in previous weeks, we're talking about the habit, the habit. So if you have a habit to give, it builds it within you, like another little good habit, to naturally, you need something? Here, have it. So that's a good, if you like, quality to develop, the mind of generosity, for example. Yep. One more question and I think we'll finish, so.
Just to understand why I'm just wondering, is it the same as the very idea of practicing goodwill without detachment to the outcome of your goodwill gesture? So that way, as you see yourself, your offering, but my offering is within my capacity.
Yes.
Whatever takers takes it out of my capacity.
Yes.
Right here, whatever the outcome of the takers, it doesn't really matter. So that's sort of
Yes.
fall into the non-attachment.
Yes. So I'll just paraphrase what you said. So the ladies asked whether the mind of equanimity, whether the outcome has any impact on that. You know, whether the person actually enjoyed an example of the chocolate, or wanted more, or, you know, were dissatisfied. So it's got nothing, you know, it's the, as long as you're not giving them poison, you know, like, yeah, have a poison chocolate, you know, it's not, so as long as that's not the case, but then it's good intention, something that I can afford, and you go, then it doesn't matter how they respond from that point of view, because the intention's there, the action's been performed.
And that's the karmic energy.
Yes, you've created, you've done something virtuous. So that's a good example. So, and because when you go back to the friend and the enemy and the stranger, the friend may love it, the stranger may love it, the enemy will probably go, oh, I don't like those chocolates, they're terrible. So if you have the mind of equanimity, you're not disturbed by their response, because you've still, here you go, have a chocolate, you know. And that's the mind we're trying to cultivate. No judgment, but still some wisdom. Because for some it's like, well, and it give, and it's like, well, nothing. So maybe there's no benefit in that at that time. So you have to have, but that develops along as well. So equanimity is the basis for a lot of good qualities, including the journey to enlightenment. So let's stop there. So I'll go to the dedication prayer. So this prayer is in two parts. There's an actual dedication, which is the first paragraph, and then the second piece is really around that mind of enlightenment, and it's in two parts. It's saying whatever the mind of enlightenment I don't have, may it develop. So it's whatever good qualities I don't have at the moment, may I be able to develop them, and whatever I do have, whatever good qualities I have got, may they grow even more. So it's an acknowledgement, yes, we're not starting from zero. You know, we already have some very good qualities, and saying, well, may they develop, and the ones I don't have, may they come about as well. So quite interesting. So I'll just do that, and then we'll finish, and after that, if you would like, come and have a cup of tea in the dining room. So we'll just finish. So, may I quickly become Guru Lord Buddha and lead each and every sentient being into his enlightened realm because of these merits. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen never diminish but increase more and more. So thank you, everyone. Okay.